Hello, creative people. Welcome to Creative Conversations. My name is Hala Citron, and we are so happy that you have chosen to spend this hour with us. So, a little background on where this podcast was born from. So, it is born from the mission of my company, I Am Creative, which is to expand the definition of creativity beyond a pencil and a paintbrush and empower people, especially adults, to recognize their talents and expressions that come in so many different forms. In this space, I get to speak to so many inspiring people that have had all different kinds of jobs, hobbies, and interests that have varied from real estate broker, lawyer, physics teacher, biochemist, doctor, Reiki masters, and so many more. And the conversation is always structured around three questions. One, how do you define creativity? Two, how do you incorporate it into your life? And three, why do you think that it's important? And then we have a free-flowing conversation and we see where it goes. So, my inspiring guest for today, I love her name, is Pallas Dame. Pallas is the founding partner and CEO of the Authority Establishment and Conscious Leadership Network. She is an integrative energy healer, medical intuitive, certified Integrative Nutrition Health Coach, specializing in the holistic practices of hormone balancing, gut health, sugar addiction, blood sugar balancing. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Pallas practices multidimensional medicine with a focus on trauma and interference patterns held deeply within the human biofields of the mind and body. Pallas works with individuals to create holistically balanced lives, optimal mental, emotional, and physical health through quantum medicine, spiritual, and integrative approaches to health and wellness. This means that she looks at how all areas of your body are connected. So she's actually looking at all of you. Amazing. Belief systems and trauma held within the body, and how all of this impacts your life as a whole. She teaches that by creating life balance and engaging in our own healing journey, we become advocates for ourselves. Wow, what a concept to be fully integrated. So, Pallas, welcome to the space. And all you need to do now is press the connect button, connect or call in, and then I'll be able to hear you. Because I see that you're in the space. There we go. Perfect. Hello.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the amazing introduction.
You're welcome. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, I know we had a pre-talk before, but I'm just like, this woman is amazing.
I don't know about amazing, but I've had plenty of life experiences to give me lots of cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. So before we dive into, any of the questions, is there anything that you would like to add to all of the words that I said?
I think the only thing is that when we're talking about the body and the mind, I actually utilize, it's a combined term called the BodyMind, because when we're looking at the body from the energetic perspective, the body-mind is the combination of how the body and the brain integrate between the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain, and then the literal is a funny word to use, the literal hologram of the body in the quantum, kind of the quantum mechanics of how things work. So it's there is the body, there is the mind, there is the spirit, there is the emotions, but then there's also this other way it all integrates called the body-mind. And just wanted to kind of touch on that.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to be touching on that all the way through this, but maybe if you could share with people like a little bit about, before we dive into this, I'm sure we'll uncover more, but yeah, I mean, give them a little bit. I mean, when I heard your story that it all started with limes, give them a little bit of background.
Yeah, so, I guess my story is pretty complicated. So what's the best way to really kind of dial it in? overall, overarching, my story with Lyme started in my mid-20s when I was about 26, when I was really impacted, and I didn't know about this at the time, by EMF when I was working on site at Microsoft, with all of the electronics, all of the cables in the walls, all of the stuff. And this has come up over time in the energy medicine sessions that I've had, that this is when basically my body broke down in such a way that one of the co-infections was then able to embed in my endocrine system, the what's called Ehrlichia. And so it just kind of hung out and incubated there for well over 10 years until about, my son is 13 now. And when he was born is when it was within an hour of him being born that I went from being a normal, healthy human to falling into panic and anxiety, and just started losing my mind, losing my grip on reality. And it was like the most epic mom fail, like right out of the gates, not really being able to tell anybody, describe what was going on with me, because it was reality was here and then it was here. And so, and everything shifted like on a dime. And so it was over the course of the last, it'll be, my son's 13, like I said, he's 13 and a half years, that I just started really struggling with these intense, with Lyme disease and all of the health issues surrounding that. And about, I guess it was about 6 years ago is when I finally hit the wall with being able to even function at all. And I'm not somebody who's a big proponent of drugs unless you absolutely need them. But when I say hit the floor, I hit the floor on my knees one day in the living room when my kids were taking a nap. And I told my husband, I'm like, I don't know how to move forward. I don't know what to do. I need somebody just to give me a drug so that I can get up in the morning and show up for my kids and show up for you and make breakfast and not kill myself during the day. I don't know what's wrong with me. And it was about that time that I finally started admitting all of these things that were going on with me. And so I ended up going to the Amen Clinic in Orange County, California, the #1 brain science clinic, and getting diagnosed with this whole host of stuff, one of which was Lyme disease, and these underpinning things of giving me mental illness. And so I went through that journey for a while with integrative health and being diagnosed there, which was fortunate, because if I had been looking for it here in Denver where I live, it was a year to get in with an actual Lyme disease type doctor, ILAD certified doctor. But yeah, and so it's just it's one of the things that they always test for with any kind of mental challenges at the Amen Clinic. And so fortunately it came up. I was like $15,000 with a blood test though, to bring that forward. And so I did the work with them for a couple years, and then according to them, got through it. The Lyme was no longer in my system, but I was still a complete train wreck the way that I was before, with the panic and the anxiety. I'd been diagnosed with bipolar, ADHD, personality disorder, panic disorder, generalized anxiety, all these different things. And I still had all this stuff going on, and still taking drugs for it. So I said to the universe one day after my psychiatrist, it's like, I don't know where else to go with you. I really don't. The next step's lithium. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Oh, God.
And so, right. And I'm like, at this point, I don't know what I actually feel worse from all the devastation that went on in my body from the disease. Are there any any diseases still going on? Is it the drugs? And so at that point, I started getting myself off of everything so that I could at least have a baseline. And that's when I said to the universe, I said, throw me a bone. I don't know where to go from here. I know that I can't move forward in my life because I'm so miserable. I was getting to the point I would rather not have a life. And so throw me a bone here. And that was when my naturopathic doctor was put into my orbit. And my conversation with her, my first ever conversation with her, was talking about me, talking about my life, talking about what I ate, what my kids were like, what it was like growing up, all the stuff about who I am and not about my disease, right? And that was the first time in years of actually a doctor looking at me and giving me my humanity back, versus looking at me as anything else. And that was the first little inkling of hope. And so I started doing my work with her, And good things were coming out of that, positive things, working on serious gut health issues that come up with these kind of diagnoses. And in that time frame is when I got exposed to cranial sacral therapy, working with my nervous system, because it was so damaged from all the stuff that had been going on in me for so long. And then from there, I got exposed to Chinese medicine, but they used purely quantum medicine and resonances of the different elements of things in the world and the body, to help balance different things going on in the body. It was my first introduction to quantum medicine too. And then from there, I worked with them for about 4 years. And then I went even deeper with body talk with my practitioner and unpacking the belief systems that are held in the human biofields and all this deep, deep down work. Next step was working with my shaman and going down even deeper rabbit holes, which is where I am now after many, many years of going from mainstream medicine to the most esoteric side of things, trying to understand my journey and develop language around what I was going through. That is how I show up where I am now in a healing capacity. I've done so much work for myself, and I've gone from this place of, I don't want to be on this planet any longer, to balancing my body back in ways I profoundly miraculous that was not capable of happening in mainstream medicine. I mean, several $100,000 spent outside of insurance trying to save my money or trying to save my life there, right? And
Right.
going through these other modalities, the profound modalities that have changed my life, and coming out and still coming out on the other end. There's still always going to be a lot of work to do. All the work that I do now is from everything that I have acquired over my journey about trying to learn how to help myself, help myself so that I can help my practitioners know what the heck that I'm talking about, so that I know what they're talking about, right? And developing that team around me. And so now, like, everything from being an integrative nutrition health coach, learning about food and lifestyle, to deep down work with gut health and being able to work with doctors on really crazy stuff going on in the digestive system, in the gut, and hormone balancing as well. Like, all of these things I learned to help me. And then with the energy medicine, quantum medicine, after getting through and starting to be able to have my own brain, I'm like, this is it. This is so profound and so powerful that then when I got to the point that I could start bringing it in for myself so that I can learn how I can pay it forward to others, that really, really facilitated my own healing and moving me forward in life so that I can show up where I'm at now as a integrative health practitioner, integrative energy medicine, multidimensional medicine, multidimensional healing. That's a kind of a term I came up with because it encompasses so many different aspects of what it means to be alive, and what it means to be a spiritual being having a human existence, and a human being having a spiritual existence while we're figuring out like our language around what we are to begin with. And that is so deep that is the core to unpacking the disease that stole well over a decade of my life, my memories of my children growing up, like so much. So yeah, there you go.
Man, so as you're saying all that, I'm like, you kind of had your eat, pray, love moment where, you're on the floor literally saying, like, universe, throw me a bone, like, what's the next step? And then you were shown this path. This person showed up in your life. So before we dive into my first question, just for the perspective of time. So how long have you now been on the side of healthy without all these diagnoses?
Really, I've unpacked the majority of it over the last less than 2 years. It'll be 2 years ago in May that I had my last significant health crash where my nervous system broke. And so it's been building. And then the last 2 years has been unpacking.
Okay. Well, we are going to unpack, and we're going to have such a great conversation. So, Pallas, can you hear me? Because you cut out for a second. Okay.
I
Okay.
can. Somebody called my phone. I am here. Yes.
Okay. Good. 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 Okay. So I want to acknowledge the people that are here live. So thank you so much, guests, for being here. The beauty of being live is that you can participate in the conversation by putting any questions or comments into the chat box if you feel so inspired, and we will acknowledge them. So thank you for being here. So we're going to start off with a would you rather question before we dive into the other three questions. So, Pallas, would you rather swim in a pool of Nutella or maple syrup?
Maple syrup, hands down. You want to know why?
Very fast.
I would much rather do maple syrup because one, I'm not a big Nutella fan, but the other is growing up when I was a kid. We lived in upstate New York, and we would tap our own maple trees and make our own maple syrup, and it was the most amazing, yummy, delicious, natural sweetener ever in the entire planet. And it reminds you of all sorts of amazing, beautiful, happy memories as a kid.
Love that. So yeah, quick question on that. So when you actually tap it out of the tree, can you eat it right away, or does it need to go through a process?
Well, yeah. So when you tap the tree, it drips. You have to put a big silver bucket under, and it looks just like water. It's just clear, but you can. It's sweet. It's very, very sweet. And so then what you do is my father built a big, huge stone oven outside, like just rustic stone oven, and then you would boil it for hours, and it would boil down the sugars until it would become what everybody knows as maple syrup. Or then you would keep boiling it and boil it down to maple candy. It's that simple. But yeah, you would literally take a hammer and beat a little spigot into the tree, just a little bitty one, hang a bucket, and it would just drip out.
So cool.
Yeah, it is.
Whoa, see, I got this cool information from that one question. Okay, great. So let's dive into the first question here, or second question, whatever, which is, how do you define creativity?
Oh, let's see. How do I define creativity? I would say for me, there's so many different aspects to that because I did start college as an artist. And to me, at that point in time, creativity was, you know, colors and painting and drawing. And what can I get down on paper that would be creative in that aspect? But over the years, like my connection with what being creative was at that point and what it is now, I think I had a pretty significant disconnect because for me, creativity is truly being in flow with the colors, with the imagination, with the experience, the experiential opportunities that come along with whatever that thing is that you're doing, whether it's arts or whether it's science or what you're exploring or reading, and being open to the possibilities and open to the potential of what can be, of whatever that situation is, or whatever it is that you're learning, the creative aspects of how can it potentially impact me as a living organism, like the neuroplasticity of my mind, of the experiences that I have meeting another person. How am I going to view the world differently after taking in these different perspectives? It's the creativity to me is being in a much deeper place of, I don't want to use like flow, there's flow, but it's flow with my spirit. It's flow with my consciousness. It's flow with the reception of information. And then how does that change me as a person as I then move into the world? And, but also like, that's a pretty esoteric way to do it. But also for me, for creativity, in order to have come to where I am now in my healing journey, in my journey back to health, as I like to say, versus my health journey. I feel one feels positive and one feels like it has a more negative connotation to it. I had to become creative. I had to go back to a childlike perspective of my view of the world, going back to things that I don't understand. Because when I got sick, all I understood was pain. All I understood was all these different diagnoses as here's this chart that says this, and here's the blood results that say that, and here's this thing, and here's this compilation of why you're so sick, not why you have health and longevity and vitality. It's like, here's all these things that are compressing you down into this tiny compressed thing that you may never be able to crawl out of again. And I had to in a state of total brain fog, like not being able to think myself out of a box at that time. Have the ability to be open to potential, that things weren't as they seemed. Because the one mantra I said to myself during that time was, and I didn't believe it, but I said it anyway, was things aren't always going to be this way. I just decided this is just what I'm going to tell myself every day with the stuff that I feel bad about. I said it hundreds and hundreds of times. Things aren't always going to be this way. Again, I didn't believe it, but I just kept saying it to myself. And so, yeah, it's that potential. It was being open to the potential of the possibilities that things could change, and being able to, again, with that childlike perspective, be open to things I didn't understand, be open to energy medicine, open to these way out there things that, you know, as a college student, be like, oh, you only go there if you're tripping acid. You know, it's like, I mean, just being real, you know, it's just like, how do we go to these places? How can these things actually help me? And that there is another way of finding out how to feel better, of how to actually heal. And so having that childlike perspective, that being in that, allowing that creativity to come to me, and then eventually connecting in on that creativity for myself while exploring what I am and who I am, is, I think, my greatest creative achievement, I guess, being able to come out to where I am now. Because without having that childlike perspective and not putting up blocks every 2 seconds to say, no, this can't be possible, I wouldn't have progressed at all.
Yeah, I mean, here you so many things were said. So here you said the first aspect of it was that label, or this is what I got from it, was like that label of being an artist. So you saw it as colors, as painting of that, you know, societal definition. And then as you've evolved and as life has happened and as this situation was presented to you, I really, really resonate and love what you're saying about that childlike perspective. And being open to potential. I'm wondering, that mantra that you were saying, did that mantra kick in for you farther along when you were in the more holistic end of it? Or was it, when were you able to adopt that?
Yeah, it was years. It was years. It wasn't until I was in the holistic side of things, when my doctors, my practitioners, my healers started hearing me. They started hearing me. And the things that they were hearing me about were things that bring it to mainstream medicine. Mainstream doctors would put me in the loony bin. Like, it's not stuff you can just talk about, or they would give me drugs for it, right? And when they started hearing me, and they're like, actually, look up in their book, here's this homeopathic thing about that, or here's this energetic thing about that, or, oh my, you know, here's this concept about stuff that I've never even heard about in my life, right? And they'd mirror back to me about these things, and these things, these concepts, these emotions, these experiences, these fears, the physical pain, the physical weird stuff, the mental weird stuff. And that's when that mantra started kicking in, when I started being heard, when I started being able to slowly move out of the emotional isolation. I would say, you know, people, when I talk about emotional isolation, I think that the emotional isolation of chronic illness is probably worse than the actual experience of the illness itself, despite how bad the illness it can be, right? And so having this team of healers hear me and see me, and my words were landing, that's when my mantra started coming into play. I started having hope.
Which makes such sense. And one of the guests, thank you for this, said freedom. That's what creativity means to her. Totally. I mean, when a practitioner, when somebody is listening to you, like, you don't feel crazy. I mean, all of this stuff, you're feeling all of these things. And whether it's the fact that, and in your situation, it was a physical thing, whether, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but whether it's a physical thing, which then affects the mind, like how they get that whole body-mind connection where you can't really differentiate which is which and what's causing which. Sometimes people, it's that whole, you know, where they say hypochondria, where, you know, you have it in your mind. And do you ever imagine that you you have these things and it's like, oh, I totally imagine that, or created those symptoms of that. But when someone's listening to you and looking at you as a whole person, and it's just validating. Those are the words that just kept coming up to me, was validation, and allowing for exploration. Like, okay, let's kind of see, now that I'm kind of seeing you as a whole person, let's explore and let's kind of see what's going on, and like these helpful words happening instead of, well, I don't know how else I can help you.
Yes, exactly. And it was several years ago when I first was getting, exposed to TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and how that whole practice looks at the human body. And it's, maybe somebody comes in, where you come in to see the doctor, the practitioner, you have all these things that are going wrong with you. And in traditional medicine, when you walk in, they're like, okay, here's this whole ball of symptoms, and here's all these reasons that you probably have, I don't know, 6 months to live, something horrible like that, right? But the flip side, when you look in the Chinese medicine side, is they see all these things that are wrong, but what they're looking at is the life force that's still running inside the body, and they say, but this is how you're thriving, and so they work to open up more and more ways that your body can continue to thrive. It's a very different perspective. It's a very different way of tapping into the life force of what you are, right? The chi in the body. And I bring this up because with the work that I do, it's very, very intertwined with TCM, ancient TCM, Ayurvedic medicine, and things like that. And looking at people from the thriving perspective, not from the collapsing potential perspective. It's how do we open up the potentials versus collapse them down in a negative way? And how do we collapse the belief systems that are impacting you in a negative way now, right? And so it's looking at that you have energy that is running through you. You have that chi that's going through you. You are thriving. You are not failing. When you have somebody looking at you as thriving, it's so much easier to look at yourself as having the potential to thrive too.
Oh my God, that is just like resonating so crazy. And I'm thinking of this TED Talk, which was in an education setting, and I can't remember her name. It was like a viral TED Talk. And basically she talked about how, she was in a situation where she had the lowest functioning kids and how she had to bring them up. And at one point, when it was like an elementary school setting, and they took a quiz and there was 20 questions and he got 18 wrong, but she put a +2, and she handed the paper back to him and he's like, Miss So-and-so, did I fail? And she's like, yes, you did. And he's like, but it says +2. And she's like, well, you're going to do better next time. You got 2 right. You're going to do better next time, right? And
Exactly.
he said, yes, I will. And she's like, right. And she said, because that -18 sucks the life out of you, but that +2 gives you hope.
Yep.
It's
That
like,
is such a beautiful example.
I'm like, oh my God, that is like so perfect. Yeah. You want to empower. It's like everything that you're saying with, with Chinese medicine. It's just like, it's just that belief that you have that energy force instead of looking at, like you said, all the problems. It's looking at the force.
Exactly. Yes. Looking at the force, it's looking at the innate quality, that light inside all of us, because it's so easy. It's way too easy to have the belief system that our light is getting snuffed out. And if we believe our light's getting snuffed out, it will be getting snuffed out.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have people continuing to, if we have people continuing to support us, to help us develop a different perspective, shift our lenses, see the world differently, what we think about, we bring about, absolutely, in that way, but integrating it even deeper over time, it's the most profound medicine out there. Like, it goes down to love. Like, love heals. Like, it's not just a thing to put on a meme or Valentine's Day or to casually put out there. It is the core element of everything that we are. Love heals. Nothing, like, the thing that drives us to dis-ease, inability to be at ease, is fear or trauma things that our body isn't able to process properly, which will then fall back under trauma and fear in that way. And if that energy gets stuck, then it becomes stagnant in the body, and the body forgets. In a really kind of a simply put way, the body forgets how to love itself. The body forgets how to move that energy through the lungs, which hold on to grief, through the liver, which if the liver is stagnant, we show up with so much anger. It's through the heart, which if our heart's not able to process these big emotions, these things that have gone on, it shows up as heart disease. If we to process through being able to speak these things, if we can't speak our truth, if there's been a time in our life that we've been really held down, or our parents or our grandparents are really held down and we weren't able to be heard, that so often shows up as issues with the thyroid, and all too often autoimmune diseases with the thyroid, projecting the voice. Like this stuff, it comes down to fear and the trauma held in the actual blood, the bones, the organs, the tissues, the energies, the emotions, the human biofields, the body mind, as I say. And the thing that as healers, as practitioners, in the energy medicine side of things, in the more esoteric places, it's allowing the body to reconnect with the divinity of what we are. And the divinity of what we are is pure love. The more divinity we can bring in, whether the mind recognizes the divinity, the more we can balance the body back to that state of natural consciousness. Natural consciousness is connected to divine love and peace and balance. The healthier, the stronger, the more vital we are. As we unpack the stuff, when I say unpack, it's literally unpacking the things that have stuck onto us, like like we're standing in the middle of the road and people are throwing gross sticky things at us that we can't pull off. Imagine like each of those sticky things as being as those traumas, those negative belief systems, the I'm not enough kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And being able to pull those things off over time and get back to the divine nature of what we are, which we weren't designed to break. We weren't designed to become sick the way that we do, right? And not that everything can be healed, it can't, but it's bringing us back closer to the oneness that we are, the beauty, that pilot light in our heart, bringing us back to that center.
I love that visual of a pilot light in your heart being the center of that, being the center of your being, your heart pumping blood through your body all day. I mean, all of the work that your body does all the time, it's amazing. And what you're saying, it's just logical. It's like what food, if you put crap into your body, then you don't feel good. If you don't move your body, then it gets stagnant and all the energy gets stuck. Like there's logical things which we don't always understand the ramifications of it. It's like, oh yeah, I just ate a whole pizza and ice cream and now I don't feel good. Huh? Oh, was it because of that? Like things that have direct relationships to each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of, go ahead. You first.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to kind of tag along with what you're saying. If we eat a pizza, people are surprised that food can make us feel crappy. Mm-hmm. People, people are so removed from food as medicine. People are like, food isn't medicine. That's just so woo woo and this and that and whatever. It's like, let's reframe that in a simple way. So you have a car. Whether you have a crappy car, whether you have a great car, are you going to go and pour Coca-Cola in the gas tank versus gas? What will happen if you pour Coke in the gas tank? What's going to happen if you pour water in the gas tank? Your tank is going to blow up. This is not going to work. Right. Why do we take better care of our vehicles? Why do we take better care of our vehicles when it's as simple, but we don't do that with our own physical form? And people are surprised. We're surprised. Oh, I'm ingesting all this stuff and I have anxiety. I have stomach issues. I have IBS. I have this. I have the other. Like all these things that can come out. My hormones are crazy. Like, oh, I don't know why. And they take this drug to fix this and that drug to fix that. It's like, what if we unpack all the stuff all the sticky stuff that you're bringing in. What if we just quit that, put the right stuff in? What kind of engine? How's your engine going to run?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty logical.
Mm-hmm.
But like what you're saying is, I mean, it takes work. It's not just stuff that's easy. I mean, unpacking trauma, facing trauma, um, facing the fact that you're not eating well, facing the fact that you're surrounding yourselves with people that are toxic. It's not easy stuff. So it can be easier to stick with the stuff that's comfortable, even though it's uncomfortable. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. For me, to be able to delineate the way that I do now, it's been many, many, many years of progress and searching and finding out that healing isn't linear, and that because I make these big strides forwards, then oftentimes you got to go backwards before you can make that big leap forwards again. And so, for me, when I first got diagnosed with Lyme, which Lyme is one of the most highly debated diseases in the medical industry. Like, insurance doesn't cover it if it's even tagged with Lyme. It's that debated. But one of the things that they do is a food test. And mine came back with, 50, 60 different things that I couldn't eat. But the things that I couldn't eat were a whole thing of veggies and spices and all these things that are healthy. And and for me, I knew kind of, how to eat, how not to eat and whatnot. But when I started having to literally cut things out and figure out new ways to eat and not eat anything packaged and try to heal my gut so they could heal my mind, it was the most traumatic experience.
Yeah.
In maybe ever, like, to date now. Like, one of the reasons I've learned, I became an integrative nutrition health coach, is trying to help myself navigate back to a place of balance with food. I became so traumatized by basically them saying, here's all these things that you can't eat. They're making you sick. And here's a big folder, read through it, eliminate all this stuff, and hopefully you'll come out the other end feeling better. They gave this to me when I could barely think. Like, I had so much brain fog. I'm like, you want me to read this? My friend escorted me to California so you guys could look at my brain, and he just handed me this thing.
Read like, this packet of 100 pages.
That ain't happening. It's not happening. And so I spent several years, every time I put something in my mouth, feeling my nervous system completely upregulate, and then like being afraid of food, afraid of what I was doing, afraid of this, like all of it. Like, I didn't understand, because at that point I didn't know anything about it at all. And so when I started that work on becoming a health coach, my initial process was, one, just to see if I could get my brain to think again. And it really wasn't to fully understand food and how to help myself, because I wasn't at that point at that time. But something.
Yeah, I'm guessing somebody.
I'm here. I'm back.
Yeah, somebody.
Yeah, and I thought maybe this is something that can help me like feel human again. And over the course of that year, I learned all of this information about eating and about toxic relationships and about just the holistic side of life being, as kind of how I talk about things now. Food is called secondary food. It's what we have to have in order to maintain a physically strong body. It should be whole, healthy, predominantly plant-based, and then all these other little subset things about that underneath. Primary foods, as I learned, were everything else in life. This is where the holistic living came into play. It was relationships, exercise, career, spirituality, all of these other elements. And that if these things are out of balance, then it really doesn't matter what you're eating. It really doesn't matter what you're eating, because your body's going to be so dysregulated from the stress, from the sadness, from the imbalance, from the stuff going on in life that you can't digest properly. It's like one thing balances out the other. And so where I'm at today is my relationship with food at this point is way more solid than it ever has been, because I know how to eat. I know what to do. I can make choices about, okay, I'm going to go eat this, pizza today and enjoy it, because I try to do like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time do the best I can, 20% live normal life. right? Just do the stuff, go have a beer, do the thing. But like, I still have these backstories in my mind that I'm still working through of food is scary because of that experience at that point in time. And so I have deep empathy for people who are just starting out on the journey, who's just, the first veil pulled back is food matters. Like, it's easy for me to go, well, here's your car example, duh. But it's not that long ago, it's like, what, 6-7 years ago, that I was like, duh, really? What are you telling me? Right. And so it's an area that, in working with folks, have to have so much conscious awareness around their relationship with food. What emotions does it bring up? What connections to their grounding do they have in life? Like, how does it connect them to their family? Did it connect to positive things, to negative things? Why is it going to be difficult to crowd the good things in, to crowd the bad things out? And how do we even labeling things like good and bad isn't good. It's like, what is serving and what isn't? Because then we can start, creating things in a whole different framework of what is serving us and what's not. It's like, sure, I can tell you all these things not to do. And you're like, okay, thank you, for the whole militant framework of what I can and can't do. That won't do good for anybody. It's like, here's information. Let's experiment, as I've had to do. Let's experiment with what works for me and what doesn't. And as I experiment and I can feel the things in myself that make me get super bloated, give me energy, I can make the conscious choices over time. Once I start learning these things for myself, I get it. But it's not until people can really self-identify with, what's your poison? What's serving you? It's like, you have to, that's the really important thing, is being soft about it and being so conscious, heart conscious about, what a difficult road that potentially can be because of all of the underlying belief systems around food, or any of it really.
Oh my God. This is like, we could spend all this. I want to get to the second question, but before I get to the second question, I don't want to run out of time, but I have to say, I never heard it explained that way, in the way of food being actual food secondary, and the first food being emotions and relationships and everything. That is really, really cool. And it's so true, because you have that first, and then you eat the way you do if you're under stress or all that other kind of stuff. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. That's really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, there's, once you're in the energy medicine side of things also, and you start going deeper, like with belief systems, these things that are held inside, oftentimes for people that just can't lose weight, what gets revealed at some point is that there's been a point in life, in the past or in the present, where life has just felt so out of control. And even though what they want more than anything is to lose that weight, the one and only thing that they can control is their weight. And so there's these like subconscious viral code in the background that's hanging out going, this is the one thing you can control. It's not front and center. It's not me going, I'm going to stay, keep these extra pounds on because of blah, 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 whatever. It's like the subconscious routine, the subroutine in the background. And it's the only thing that keeps the stability there, right? And so that's the whole holistic view of things. Like, it's the chicken or the egg.
And it's that whole thing of looking at somebody as a whole person and knowing listening to their story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on to the second question. So,
sure.
Pallas, tell me, because you listed it in the bio, I didn't read your whole bio because I wanted you to be able to just say some of the things. How are some of the things that you enjoy? How do you incorporate it into your life? Creativity. I know that you do so much through your job, but what other things do you do?
Yeah. So, gosh, I mean, there's so many things. My job, like what I do with my work, is really just an extension of my life. I don't box really one or the other in that way. I love all the learning. I love learning. I love learning so much and exploring these different perspectives of healing, of what we are, the whole spiritual side of things. That's deeply powerful to me, from a non-dogmatic perspective. Then creative is also building the Conscious Leadership Network, which is where we connected, which is creating a space for people to come together and connect and co-create and be, build together and create a better reality. That's creative for me. Outside of that, I would say, gosh, I mean, I have 2 kids, and the art projects that we work on, and how to decorate our home and make things comfy and cozy, and just basic, super tangible things in that way. With them, I love getting outdoors. I love getting outdoor nature. If I could spend the majority of my time outside in nature opens up my brain, my body, my energies, and that is where I get my downloads of what creativity is and how I can then take it back into my life. And for me, I love collaborating with people and coming up with new concepts and ways of connecting with other people and sharing love and trying to really embrace being human together. I think my biggest, aspects, it's outside of work. It all dovetails back together for me. Like it really does. Cause kind of my end goal with what I want to do with my practice and with my business and with my family, and with these co-creations and collaborations, my end goal is I really want to have, like a farm where people can come and experience this kind of work that I do, the kind of work that other people do, where they can connect and collaborate and co-create and build together. Like, I think that is the biggest thing for me, is being a catalyst of creativity, not just for myself, but for those that I connect with, and really being able to build out on that. And so it all really weaves itself back together, because it all is going towards the same destination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to acknowledge the audience again. Thank you so much for being here. And Chris, yes, love nature. It's where we really belong. And tell everybody where you live right now, because it's beautiful where you are.
Oh, me? Yes, I'm in Colorado.
Yeah.
I live in Arvada, which is between Denver and Boulder, so I can go hang out either place. And I'm about 10 minutes from the Front Range of the Rockies, and so I am really fortunate in that we get to go to the mountains very often. My husband loves jeeping, and so we go off-roading. And he belongs to an organization of the guys who actually do search and rescue with Jeeps here in Colorado. And I don't do that, but I get to do some of it. And I get to go see these most amazing, beautiful places that like National Geographic, and hiking, and just that kind of experience. And so I can step out my front door and just be there. It's so so important. Plus, and we live in a kind of a rural suburban neighborhood, with tons of open space. And so in that regard, I'm able to walk out my front door and just go to the lake right beside our house, which is like 5 minutes away. Not even really. That's me walking slowly to the lake. And there's not a ton of water in Colorado, people that have been here, but I just feel really blessed to be someplace like this where I can go out and just listen to the trees, listen to the wind, and feel, really tune in to what I am in that natural space.
Yeah. When you're talking, I hear so much of this theme of connection in what you're saying, collaboration, connection. And when you pointed out, which is so true, when you really love what you do, there is no differentiation between work and life. It just all becomes one, because you're living your purpose, you're living your mission. And they're completely intertwined. And I really like how you pointed out too, how all these things that you do for enjoyment like being outside, being in nature, being with your family, all this kind of stuff, but then also recognizing the fact of building your company. So conscious leadership networking, that is a creativity. It's taking, when you look up the definition of creativity in the dictionary, it's the formation of an idea or an object. So we're doing that all the time. And it's a matter of what you're forming. So here you are, for the people who say, oh, well, I'm not a creative being or a creative person. Yes, you are. Like you said, like an interior decorating, making it cozy. When you're making food and you're either following a recipe or creating your own and adding, or using a recipe and adding, making some tweaks to it, there's creativity. That how do you plate it? Gardening, if you're sitting around a boardroom table and you've been presented with an issue, and how you either solve it on your own or collaborate with others to come up with a solution, it's problem solving. So within every situation, it's the formation of an idea or an object.
You're absolutely right. And what I think more and more people are beginning to recognize is that we literally do create our own realities. And what we, like I said earlier, what we think about, we bring about. I don't say that lightly. We have so much more power over our experience in this world, the lenses that we choose to wear, what we allow into our orbit and what we don't. Every aspect of what we are is pure creativity. And the feeling, the belief that people have that I'm not a creative person, it's a belief system, and that would be what I would call an interference pattern, something that's coming in and blocking somebody from their true potential. Because we are all purely creative beings in so many different ways. It doesn't mean that we have to be an artist, although anybody could be an artist if they wanted to. It doesn't mean it's their passion, but we are creating every second that we are alive. We are creating every second we are alive, with the conversations we have, the people that we touch, the people that we allow to touch us, the information that we allow in, just there, people that practice gratitude practices, for example. People who, going through life, this guy hit me when I was driving down the road and the universe is after me. And then I was walking into my house and I, tripped over my front stoop and fell flat on my face. And I went to the grocery store and this person was a jerk to me and whatever, like stuff, like the stuff that just happens. Like when there's actual gratitude practices that when you do them every day for starting with a week and you make it to a month, these gratitude practices help to rewire the brain. Because when we look at the world with these out of these lenses of a place of lack, of things are out to get me, of I don't have what I need, right? Then that's going to be the stuff that we see. We're going to see the jerks out there. We're going to not see the rock that makes us trip on our face. We're going to bring in the negative experiences, the negative people, the energy vampires. But when we start bringing in the gratitude and we start slowly shifting our viewpoint, our perspective, when I say shifting lenses, we literally shift them and we're able to start seeing the beauty. We're able to start seeing the kind, loving person in the grocery store line versus the cranky old person, not old, I don't mean old in that way, cranky person, who might have only got our attention before, who would have ruined our day. And give yourself an entire month of gratitude practices. Every morning, you kind of meditate, you think about like something that you're grateful for. The way that you view the world, the things that start coming into your world, you're going to start bringing in abundance. You're going to start bringing in the abundance of positive people, of good things, of beauty, of just the simple stuff. It could be the bigger stuff for somebody. You never know, right? But it's all about, it's about what we're allowing ourselves to create in our own reality.
Yeah. When I was teaching in the classroom, every Friday I'd have Gratitude Friday. And soon as they'd come into the class, I had them for 45 minutes. They'd have a Post-it at their seat, and I'd give them 3 minutes to write 3 things that they're grateful for. And then we would attach it to a bigger piece of paper, which we called a gratitude wall. So it was somebody's job to collect them and put them up. And I'd pick 2 people if they wanted to share out what they're grateful for. So each Friday, there were some kids that would just be like, oh God, again? Why do we have to do this again? I'm like, because at every moment you have something to be grateful for. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're grateful that you can walk. You're grateful that you're seeing your friend today. You're grateful that you have food. You're grateful for your shoes, whatever it is. But then there would be some people that would dive right in. And this was working with ages kindergarten to 8th grade. So there was the kids that would dive right in, and then there was the kids that would start arguing about it. So it was just interesting, and it was just always interesting to see what happened once they got past the point of, why do I have to do this? And some kids would just say, for food.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd say, food, food, food. And that would be it. But as the weeks went on, there would usually be some transformation and some change to start to grab onto the concept. But I just always enjoyed it because there was more kids that started to grasp it and appreciate it. And lots of interesting things came out of it because they were kind of like little telltales of stuff where I could see what was going on in the family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, I bet you could.
Yeah. There were some flags that went up, and I could go to them and ask a certain question and be like, is everything okay, or that kind of thing. But
wow,
yeah,
when
you mentioned it, that made me think of it.
Absolutely. So our kids, we decided to homeschool them this year. Like, we pulled them out of the district and we're just totally doing the at-home thing. And this week our project is I'm going to take them to Michael's, which is a craft store, and we're going to each get a special jar, and then we're going to decorate them and turn them into whatever it is they want. And we're going to make gratitude jars this week. And for my 13-year-old son, it's going to be a really good thing for him. I will tell you that.
It really, yeah, definitely is. With my 17-year-old, like, before we go to sleep each night, we say 2 things we're grateful for before we close our eyes. So, yeah. So, okay. So, Pallas, let's move on to the third question because we're getting to the top of the hour. And we pretty much said things, but I want to wrap it up. And I know that you're going to put it in a really cool way. So then why is creativity important?
Creativity is important because we're connected to what we are. Creativity is important when we can allow ourselves to be in flow with the potential and possibilities of life, of what we can be, of what we can transform, of what we can aspire to, of what life can be, of what this world can be. It's removing the veils of all the reasons that you can't, and taking that veil back and going, all the reasons that I can. And
love that.
So that's what I think.
Woo! Well, that is such an incredible way to wrap this up on. And I, again, acknowledging the listeners, I'm so grateful for all the people that are online right now. Before I have Pallas tell you how you can find her, I want to just kind of reiterate some things that she pointed out. And I want you to think about what is serving you and what's not. That's simple. Just think about in your life, what is serving you and what's not. Become aware. And from that is growth. Then you can see there's much more to it. But when you find that starting point, then you can start to see what your starting point is and then see where to go from there. And, like she had her moment where it was like, throw me a bone. Like, what do I need to do? And the universe put that person in front of her. So yeah, I want to thank you so much, Pallas, for sharing your story and sharing all of your wisdom and all of the light that you put out into the world.
You're welcome. I'm very blessed that you had me on your show today. Thank you so much. It's been awesome talking with you.
Well, thank you. But before you go, can you please tell everybody how they can find you? I am going to put it in the bio of the podcast.
Yeah, sure. So probably the easiest way to connect with me would be my website, which is just it's my name, pallasdame.com, which is P as in Paul, ALLASDAME.com. Yep, you got it. And
Mhm.
also through my website, you can connect with me inside of the Conscious Leadership Network, which is my beauty, my baby. We're growing it. It's amazing. It's absolutely awesome. I would love for you guys to connect over there because it's
Yeah.
not just about me. It's about everybody who's in there. And it's community.consciousleadershipnetwork.com. So you guys join us over there. Love to have you. And bring your magic.
Yeah, it really is a place that really is about community, and the space is just such a user friendly space. It's a virtually. It's just a pretty space too. It's just really easy to navigate, and there's really cool people. So I want to thank you for creating it.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for joining it. I wouldn't have met you
Yeah.
otherwise.
I'm so happy. So everybody, so again, listeners, whether you're listening live or to the replay, this space is all about inspiring, connecting, and sharing stories. So that's why we're here, and that's why we have these conversations. So please share, like, follow, share, so we can just empower people to be the best versions of themselves, literally, and have these conversations. So I just wish everybody a wonderful day, evening, whatever part of the world you're listening, and wishing everybody health. And I look forward to our next podcast with my next guest, which is coming up this Wednesday. And yeah, so Pallas, again, thank you so much. And everybody, we'll talk to you really soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Bye.